Well, the next thing to do is put the bridle on. And I use a 15-pound braided Dacron fishing line that I buy online from various fishing supply places. And it doesn't have to be this strong for the bridle. It could be 10-pound fishing line. It just has to be line that will not stretch. That's the most important thing. I've flown kites made with this 15-pound bridle material in super strong winds, 25 miles an hour, and have never had one of the bridles break because it was pulling too hard. And the kites were pulling very, very hard in those strong winds. But probably 10, maybe even 8-pound braided Dacron would work fine. But this is easier for me because it's a little bit bigger in diameter and I can deal with it better. And even though that's not a good quality for flight uh, speed and so on, it creates a little more drag than a smaller diameter line would, but it's what I can deal with more easily. So that's what I use. The first thing is that I do is I put on this upper bridle yoke. Now, this is a piece of line about 12 inches long, and I tie one end through the hole I made in the sail and tie it right to the bow on both sides. The thing that's important with this piece is that you do not want it to go over the nose of the kite. If it does, the kite will still fly, but it's very high probability that that bridle will loop over that nose at one point and your kite will crash because you'll no longer have control of it. To prevent that, just make sure that this piece isn't long enough to go over the nose. Pretty simple. The next piece of line I use is about, I'd say 2 feet long. Doesn't have to be exactly that, but it's just long enough so that I can put a loop in one end. And by making the loop, I just make an overhand knot and tie it, and that's the loop right here. And I want the loop because I'm going to use it to lark's head this line, which is our lower bridle line, to the upper bridle yoke here. The way I do it is I put the loop under the bridle yoke, and then I poke the knot of the loop through itself but over the line of the yoke, and then pull the rest of it through and then snug it up, and that's a lark's head knot. Now the beauty of this knot is that it's lockable and unlockable, therefore it's adjustable. So to lock it, you simply open up the loop and pull, and you can feel kind of a snapping of the line of the knot, and that's indicating that it's locked or unlocked. To unlock it, you simply pull on this line and it unlocks. To lock it, you open it up and pull it, and that locks it. Now I'm going to tie this to the hole I made for the lower bridle. I'm going to tie it to the one closest to the nose. When you tie this line, the thing you want to make sure about is that it does not allow the line to go over the wingtip of the kite, because just like with this loop here in the upper bridle, you don't want to have the opportunity of this bridle line getting snagged around the corner of your kite. It'll just cause the kite to crash. So I make it just so short enough so it doesn't do that. So now that's a 3-point bridle right there. And the kite could fly just fine this way. I'm going to put a 4-point bridle on because I like those, and I like the added flexibility it gives me in adjusting the bridle while I'm flying or out flying. And this piece is a little bit shorter. This is about 12, 15 inches long. And I make a loop on the end of it as well. Just an overhand knot, and then tie it, and that's it. That's the loop I need, and I just trim off the tail a little bit so it's not quite so long. Now, I'm going to again use a lark's head knot, and I'm going to attach this line to the lower part of the lower bridle line in the same way. So now I have a lark's head knot here, and I'm going to then tie this to the lower holes that I made in the sail. But with this one, before I tie it, I'm going to cut another piece of line, short, maybe 6 inches or so, and I'm just going to fold it in half and make a loop and use just an overhand knot and tie it, and then cut the tail off so it's not quite so long, but I do want a little bit of a tail. This I'm going to use this is where my kite line will attach to the kite bridle. This is called the toe point, or the toe point. So I'm going to lark's head this onto the lower bridle, just like that. Okay, now I'm going to lock it. Well, I'm not going to lock it. I'm just going to snug it up here. I'll lock it. Okay, there, it's locked. Okay, so this is the angle of the kite in the air. Now, the reason I put this on is because I want to adjust the length of this last leg of the bridle. And to do that, what I do is I set the angle of the kite like I want, and usually when I start flying, I start with a kite that's relatively flat to the wind, not a lot of angle. So the nose of the kite, with the tail of the kite on the table here, the nose is about 2 inches off the table, maybe 2.5, and that's about where I start when I'm out flying. And I may need to adjust that based on the kite and the wind and so on. So once I have that, then I am able to adjust this last leg. If I want both of these lower legs here, this one and this one, to be active, you can see here that as I change the length of this, it changes to make the lower one active and the upper one inactive or loose. Now I want that flexibility, but I want to be able to do it by adjusting this lark's head knot. So now I have the approximate distance I need to do that, and I'm going to tie it to the spine right here. So now that this is completed, the very last step that I use when making a kite is to balance or check the balance between the nose and the tail of the kite. And the way I usually do it is just with my fingers under the kite, balance it here, and just notice where my finger points are. But if you want to do it in a more accurate way, which isn't necessary really, but shows you more easily what the balance is, place the kite on some, like a yardstick or something, and just move it a little bit till it balances. So it's pretty close right there. And from the wingtip line towards the nose, it's about 3/4 of an inch. And for me, that's a good place for it to balance. It could be a little closer to the wingtip line also for me. What happens when the balance point is closer or near or almost at the wingtip line? The kite's spin isn't really, it's rotational. It's like this. That's how it spins. As the balance point moves towards the nose, the spin becomes more of a loop. And the closer to the nose the balance point is, the larger the loop the kite will make when it spins. It also affects how quickly the kite will enter into a spin. So each kite flyer has their own preferences, and therefore the place where they want their kite to balance might be different from where I want mine to balance. I prefer a spin that is more rotational. The reason is it's the very quickest way a kite can move from this direction to that direction. It doesn't have to go in any circle or loop to do it. And when I am flying in line touch competition with another flyer, which I love doing, I want to have that quick ability to change direction in order to potentially win a point. But that is just me. Each person has their own way of determining what's right in terms of their kite flight. And that's the only thing that matters. How I like it is irrelevant to the way you like it. So this is how I make my North American fighter kites.